I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board. Today is September 16th, 2014. The time is 5:01 p.m. And Mrs. Perleberg, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? May I have roll call beginning with Mr. Jackson, please?
George Jackson.
Pam Kirby.
Barbara Perleberg.
Denny Brown.
Bonnie Sneed. To my left is Superintendent Dr. Peterson, and Rose is filling in for Sandra this evening. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, so moved.
Second, please.
I'll second it.
All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries 5-0. At this time, Dr. Peterson, could you please tell us the student and staff recognition and celebrations?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Welcome everyone here tonight. It's hard to believe we're in the middle of September. The month is quickly going by. The celebrations this evening, I'm proud to have Dr. Melissa Sakos come up and recognize our SUSD Foundation Quest for the Best Gala nominees and winners in the field of athletics and civic leadership.
Hi, everybody. I was actually looking in the audience to see if we have any SUSD Foundation board members present. Oh, Shauna. Hi, how are you? Good, come on up, Shauna. All right. Well, that's board member Shauna James. Oh, and Nan Strohmeyer from the Foundation Board. And I would like you ladies to help me hand out some certificates. So if you can kindly make your way up. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Rose, thank you for having me tonight to share with you celebrations specific to the SUSD Foundation. For those of you that were able to attend the Quest for the Best Gala on September 6th, and for those of you that weren't able to because of prior commitments, we missed you. But as you know, the Scottsdale Unified School District Foundation has started up last year the Quest for Best Gala, not only to raise money for the Scottsdale School District, but also to recognize excellence, former excellence students in our school, but then also current students in our school, current teachers, and administration. This year, the inductees for the SUSD Foundation was the 44th Vice President of the United States, Dan Quayle, who attended Scottsdale High, and we also had Dr. Michelle Mitchell, who was an Arcadia High School grad, a two-time silver medalist in platform diving. And so we were very honored to have them as our inductees September 6th at the second annual gala. Tonight, I want to share with you and recognize the SUSD student nominees. So in those two areas, civic leadership and athletics, each principal was charged with working with their school community, their staff, on nominating an outstanding student in the area of civic leadership and athletics. And so there were 5 nominees in civic leadership, 5 nominees in athletics, and while we had 1 winner, we want to make sure that all of these students are very much winners in our eyes, because you should have seen the applications and the impressive achievements that all of these students have made on campus. So with that, we'll start with our nominations for outstanding athletes. Let's start there. All right, from Chaparral High School, their nominee was Ryan Baster. Are you here, Ryan? Nope, he's not here. Michaela Brewington. Oh, Michaela couldn't make it. Ellie Crossman. No. Austin Bates? Right. Come on. Austin was the nominee from Arcadia High School, and the nominee from Coronado High School, who was our winner, is Allison Alvarez. Allison, are you here? All right, don't go too far. We're going to be taking photos out in the lobby. Okay. Outstanding athletes, of course, come with outstanding coaches. And Chris McKenna, you'll remember or recall the face as he comes up here, because he was recently recognized for his accomplishments with chaparral cross country and track and field. But what you probably don't know about Chris is by day he is an adaptive PE teacher in the school district. And that means that he travels to multiple schools working with our special education students. And the can-do attitude that he portrays on the track and in cross country is the same can-do attitude with our special needs students each and every day. So Chris, come on up. Chris was our teacher winner in the field of athletics, so you can stay up here and smile at everybody. Because next I'm going to call up the outstanding administrator, and certainly a champion in the area of athletics, I guess literally and figuratively. Cliff McKenzie has given 30 years to Scottsdale Unified School District and his life to athletics. And he's a champion in his own right as a former a track star, but he also continues to be a champion for all students in SUSD. And notably, some of the most recent opportunities he's provided for our middle school students, as well as the All-City Banquet, and for that recognition. I can go on for a very long time about my buddy Cliff, but we love you, Cliff. Thank you. The young Cliff McKenzie. All right, keep standing up and smiling at everybody, because you deserve it. All right, so outstanding civic leadership. Again, 5 students were nominated. The first one from Coronado was Samantha Mooney. Are you here, Samantha? Nope. From Desert Mountain High School, G. Juan Park. Oh, there you are. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is pretty cool.
It's for senior citizens.
Okay. All right, and from Chaparral High School, outstanding civic leadership, Nina Kravitz. Nominated from Saguaro High School, Alexander Stevens. Are you here, Alexander? No. All right, and nominated from Arcadia High School, who was also our overall winner, Arisbeth Covrubius. All right, is Tammy Diaz here? Tammy was our outstanding teacher that was recognized in the areas of civic leadership. Not only is she a recent National Board Cert teacher, she's pursuing her PhD. She's dual enrolled teacher where her students have opportunities to gain college credit while taking her classes. She's been instrumental in helping with the Scottsdale Online in the areas of world history. She's an AP, advanced placement psychology teacher, as well as an advanced placement world history teacher. You can tell an all-around gem for SUSD. So congratulations, Tammy, if you're watching. And again, excellent leadership in the area of civic leadership is our very own Mr. Jeff Quisberg. Come on up, Mr. Quisberg. Mr. Quisberg is another one of those individuals, not old, but has just been around and serving SUSD for 22 years. And the Desert Mountain High School, or the Desert Mountain Learning Community, has been fortunate to have him there as one of our distinguished A-plus schools. Mr. Quisberg has also been instrumental in helping other schools go through the process and achieve that distinction. And he is an overall champion for excellence in leadership, and we really appreciate Mr. Quisberg and are very lucky to have him with us. Oops, I was going to give you. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, head to the lobby for a photo opportunity, and congratulations on behalf of the foundation.
And again, we would like to thank the foundation because you guys do great work. We know your pay is very high. It's in satisfaction. And thank you for providing opportunities, and the students that won receive scholarships. So we are greatly appreciative to that. Thank you. Next, I'd like to have Dr. Mitch Von Echten come up and introduce Mr. Max Rumbaugh. Max is quite a pillar in our community. He does great work, not only with Rotary, but tonight he's here on behalf of the Sister Cities Youth Program. And through the work that Max has done with our Sister Cities Youth Program, we have been able to have exchanges with youth all over the world that we would not have been able to do otherwise. And our students are greatly enriched in those experiences. So, Mitch, take it away.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peterson. Governing board members, it is my pleasure tonight to introduce to you Max Rumbaugh and recognize many of our teacher leaders. Max, why don't you come up and join me if you would? Just for some background, the city of Scottsdale has 7 sister cities. Those are Alamos, Sonora, Mexico, Cairns, Queensland, Australia, Kingston, Ontario, Canada, Interlaken, Switzerland, Haikou, Hainan, China, Marrakesh, Morocco, and Uasin Gishu, Kenya. The reason for having sister cities is to develop international friendships and understanding with the citizens of other nations. This mission is accomplished by people-to-people interactions, which are managed by the Scottsdale Sister Cities Association, the SSCA. A heavy focus of the SSCA is one on the youth of Scottsdale, their education, and their increased international know-how. SUSD and SSCA have a long history of cooperation in this joint student education effort. With the encouragement and active support of SSCA, there exists an international club at each of our 5 high schools. The success of this cooperative extracurricular activity is due to the dedication of several teachers who are the teacher sponsors of those international clubs. Often on their own time, these teachers meet with the student clubs, encourage students to pursue an interest in global students, meet with each other, and guide students to become youth ambassadors for their school. Through this process, our students gain personal knowledge of other languages, geography, civics, different cultures, and diversity. And with that, Max, would you like to hand out certificates first or say a few words? I'll leave it up to you. Certificates? Sure, you go first.
I'd say a couple words and then have a couple people help me on it and so forth. So, Madam President, Superintendent, appreciate the opportunity, board members, to be here with you today. Thank you for this opportunity for Scottsdale Sister Cities and your school district to jointly recognize some very, very special teachers. I'm just excited that we can focus our attention on them. Last year, we focused upon the students that participate in it, and to be able to recognize the teachers, I think, is magnificent. I'd like to have Lisa White to join me and come on up, as well as Anne-Marie Dufresne. The 3 of us are board members with the Scottsdale Sister Cities, so that's why I asked them. Lisa was a retired teacher from the school district, and Maria is a Spanish teacher at Arcadia High School. The Sister Cities is focused on enhancing the global awareness and know-how of the students, as Mitch said. We had 32 students participating in, your students participating in exchange programs last year going to our cities. This year we're off to a fantastic start. We've had over 200 students involved in the very first meetings of the international clubs at our 4 of the high schools. The 5th one hasn't met yet, and so forth. But the key to the success of the program between the 2 of us, it's a joint effort, is the teachers, because the teachers are the ones that during their breaks, during their school breaks, they spend their time working with the students. And as I've noted before, you know, sometimes you think in terms of, well, gee whiz, being able to be a teacher to go along with us over to Marrakesh or to Alamos or Interlaken, that must be a vacation. It ain't no vacation, I can assure you. Because they are busy teaching, they are busy bringing them, supervising them, and guiding them throughout that whole period of time. So they really get an opportunity to see and enhance their own professionalism by being able to go overseas, but they also are working hard on a time which they're trying to, you know, normally is set aside for them to refresh themselves and rejuvenate themselves for the rest of the school years. So, as leaders of Scottsdale Sister Cities, the three of us are pleased to join in the recognition of some of the teachers, one of which is Anne Marie. And here I'd like to have Anne Marie actually do the introduction as Mitch and I give out the certificates and so forth. So, Anne Marie?
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for having us. It's not really it doesn't happen that often that a club at a high school level gets a community backing like this, where we have financial support, of course, but also leadership. They give us a lot of leadership from mentors in our community down at our student level. So we're really happy to be able to work for almost 15 years now, where our clubs at the high school level have been with this bigger business type of community organization. With all this support, the teachers like me are receiving even more support, so I can provide extracurricular activities and more enrichment type things that happen during my lunch period or after school, or pretty much every fall break and spring break I've been giving up. So without any of these teachers who've been doing it with me for the last few years, we would be missing out on many unique opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise. And we enjoy seeing our students become global citizens, and every day we're encouraging them to be global citizens right here in our local community. So I'd like to introduce these special teachers to you. We have with us today Mary Walther from Arcadia. We also have Lisa McClandish from Coronado. And Faith Harris from Chaparral. And Jennifer Harmon from Saguaro. And Mike Harris from Saguaro as well.
And last but not least, I think I've got it here. I had it on top.
Oh, no, we gotta find this
You
guy.
gotta find it. You gotta find it. There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Anne Marie.
Congratulations. Please, want to get a picture if I right quick and we'll run.
And we would like to just say thank you for our teachers for making a great experience for our students. They continue to talk about all the exceptional experiences they have when the students come visit. Last year, Marrakesh had a great time here, and we're looking forward to Interlaken coming up.
Thank you.
Finally, our last celebration this evening is another important celebration because, as we all know, we have incredible teaching and learning going on in our district. And Dr. Von Echten is going to recognize some of our outstanding AP teachers. We have one of the strongest AP programs in the state and across the country. We've been recognized by the College Board for the outstanding work that our teachers do to prepare our students. And it is a lot of work outside of the classroom even to prepare our students for those AP exams, and we do extremely well. So Mitch, let's bring up our teachers and thank them
you
for
very
all
much,
the work
Dr.
they're doing.
Peterson. Governing board members, it's my pleasure tonight to recognize several of our AP teachers. You know, last spring, 2,211 advanced placement examinations were taken by Scottsdale students across our 5 high schools and Scottsdale Online Learning. This number of exams is not only indicative of the manner in which our students challenge themselves, but really it speaks to the quality of work and the dedication of our advanced placement teachers. Having been an advanced placement teacher in U.S. history and macroeconomics some years ago, I can tell you it takes a lot of work and it's a dedication to see these kids succeed as we do. It's my honor this evening to recognize these teachers that had both a significant percentage of their students take the exam and a significant percentage of those students that passed. So with this evening, please join me in honoring the following teachers from across our high schools. Ted Anderson, Kristen Andriados, Maria Atkinson. James Brown. All right, we're gonna get one up here soon. Jesus Cruz. Aaron Dahl. Andrea Danis. Renee Davis. Jennifer Duclos. All right, we got one in the house here. Steve Geislinger. Yes. Stay up here. Scott Hammond. Beatrice Hecht. Tyler Knox. Malcolm Linewall. Allison Loof. Kimberly Mayorga. All right, I think I saw her. Christine Porter Marsh. Yes. Harvard Nilsson. Joseph Olney. All right. Shannon Paloma. Joshua Pantier. Richard Peterson. Twyla Pressling. Okay, and I think I'm going to get this name wrong. Riza Ramirez de Antarctica. And I can't get her last name, I apologize. Barb Thomas. What's up, Barb? Laurel Vogt. Marcy Warner. Ann Wilkins. Again, thank you all very much for the hard work you do. I appreciate it. And we're going to get a photo outside. So.
And Mitch, next time we're going to start from the back of the list and read forward. So,
We'll.
That ends our celebrations for this evening. As you can see, great things are happening in Scottsdale schools, and we appreciate our teachers for everything they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. At this time, we will take public comment. I have one person. I need to read a short admonition. This is a portion of the SUSD Governing Board meeting when we invite the public to make comments. Although not required to do so, the Governing Board values the input of the community, so we feel it's an important part of communication with our stakeholders. As explained on the cover of the agenda, anyone wishing to address the Governing Board will fill out and submit a blue card for non-agenda matters, and that's all we're going to talk about tonight because that's the only one I have. For non-agenda matters, it's important to take note that action taken as a result of this kind of public comment can only be limited to responding to any criticism made by those who have addressed the Governing Board, or we can direct staff to look into the matter or ask that the matter be put on a future agenda. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.01G, no other discussion or legal action is allowed. Approach the microphone, and there's a 3-minute speaking limit. Vice President Brown will hold up cards to indicate the time that is remaining. In all cases, public comment is subject to reasonable subject matter, place, and manner restrictions. Record your comments so they are not defamatory or disrespectful in nature. John Olson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson. My name is John Olson. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Haig, Curie, and McHugh. I'm speaking here today on behalf of the Edibari family, Dr. Michael Edibari and Miss Celine Edibari as parents of Rachel Edibari, who's a 6th grade student at Mountainside Middle School in the Scottsdale Unified School District. I wish I was here to celebrate the tremendous staff you had tonight. However, the reason I'm here today is to bring to light a situation involving Rachel's class placement, which, if left unresolved, will result in our filing a lawsuit against the district. Rachel is grossly misplaced in her math class, and the school and Superintendent Peterson continue to refuse to advance her to a class suitable for her unique gifts and ability. My understanding of math placement at the junior high level is that all students are given a diagnostic aptitude assessment to measure their aptitude for 7th grade math when exiting the 5th grade. Those that score well are placed in an advanced track, starting with 7th grade math, and those that lack certain core understandings are placed in the traditional 6th grade curriculum. To the best of our knowledge, Rachel scored an 84% aptitude for 7th grade math and was placed in the 7th grade math class. Over the summer break, however, while most students are trying to forget what they learned last year, Rachel continued to advance her academics and attended Scottsdale Community College, where she completed a 4-credit-hour intermediate algebra class. Rachel earned an A in the class at 93.4% and a glowing letter of recommendation from her professor, who described Rachel as having mathematical maturity in reasoning, diligence, and remarkable attention to precision, and that the logical next math class sequence for Rachel should be Algebra 2 with trigonometry. This, of course, did not come as a surprise to the Adabaris, who have established a culture of extraordinarily high academic achievement for their 4 children, of which Rachel is the second youngest. Given that Rachel has the academic foundation, aptitude, and determination to take on Algebra 2, you can imagine how she feels about the 7th grade math curriculum, which is something less than pre-algebra and obviously nowhere as advanced as the college level intermediate algebra she already completed. Rachel is unchallenged, unstimulated, and underestimated. Needless to say, the district's core values of providing an atmosphere that engages, educates, and empowers all to excel are grossly unfulfilled in this situation. As such, Rachel's parents have made their best efforts to cause the school and superintendent to move Rachel up to the 8th grade class, where she can be engaged by the curriculum, challenged to learn something new, and empowered to keep striving for scholastic excellence. Despite the Adabari's best efforts, she remains in 7th grade. Thank you for your time and attention tonight. Thank you.
This time on the agenda is superintendent comments. Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'd first like to welcome and introduce to you Mr. Terry Wooster, who is our new Director of Facilities and Operations. Terry is taking over for Rick, and Terry is a licensed architect, has a lot of school experience in the state, and we welcome him, and he's hit the ground running as we've had some great opportunities to excel this past week. So welcome, Terry. I am very proud to announce that it has just been released that Scottsdale Schools has 31 2015 National Merit semifinalists. The list of commended students will be published later this month, but to have 31 National Merit semifinalists is a huge accomplishment, and we want to recognize Chaparral, Desert Mountain, and Saguaro for their students that have been able to obtain that honor. It's well-deserved. Another accomplishment that is a huge accomplishment and very well reserved is Newsweek magazine recently published its 2014 America's Top High School list. Scottsdale Unified School District is pleased to announce that Chaparral High School was ranked number 22 in the nation. Again, in the nation. Chaparral is recognized as doing the best job of preparing students for college, and we agree that they're doing a great job. And that's truly a true ranking compared to some of the other rankings we've seen come across. The next closest high school in Arizona was approaching 200. So Chaparral is doing all the right things, and we appreciate the teachers and staff and the students there. Next, I would like to show that we have been given a big check, and I truly mean a big check. So we have been given a check from Office Depot and Office Max for $11,871, and this check will go directly towards teachers and teacher supplies in the classroom. So we're very proud of the work that Office Depot and Office Max has done to recognize Scottsdale schools and to provide much-needed dollars to our teachers for supplies. So we wanted to recognize them for that. Today, Coronado High School hosted the Running and Winning Workshop. It was sponsored by the American Association of University Women, the Scottsdale branch, and the League of Women Voters of Metropolitan Phoenix. We had 20 female elected officials that attended, including board members Bonnie Sneed and Barbara Perleberg and Pam Kirby. We had 100 young female seniors who attended the event at Coronado. It was a great opportunity for our young women in Coronado High School to learn about our country's political process and to interact with female elected officials in their community. And we really appreciate everything that Coronado did and Alyssa Tarkington to help put that event together. And we heard a lot of great things from the 100 female students that were there to participate. And thank you, board members, for being there. We appreciate that. Also, this past Saturday, we had Parent University, and I'd like to thank the parents who attended our third annual Parent University project. It was wonderful to see a lot of people come out and celebrate the hard work of our community, the hard work of our community education department, of our teachers, all of our gifted department, our ELL department. Many departments were represented there, our curriculum department, and we had a great outpouring. We also had the privilege of having Mr. Robert Franick there. He writes the 379 Best Colleges book every year through Princeton Review, and Princeton Review sponsored his talk, and it was a great talk. What was surprising a little bit was, even though we had families there that were seniors and juniors, some sophomores, we had a fair amount of middle school families there listening to that talk, which tells us we have to make sure that we reach down to the middle schools and really start preparing that college and career pathway in our middle schools. And so that was a great testament to our community and what they want to make sure that we are providing. Finally, a couple cleanup items I'd like to make sure that we announce. As you know, at the last board meeting, we had a presentation regarding the SDER, which is our employee report. And we've been working with ADE along with several other districts to help them correct their program. It was very evident that there was issues with their program, and the governing board gave us clear direction to make sure that we did not support any of those reports until they were finally fixed. I am pleased to say that based on the governing board's direction, we approached ADE, we worked with them. Sean Holmes did a lot of heavy lifting, and originally ADE said that they would have the program completed and fixed by September 12th. They actually exceeded our expectations and got it done on September 5th, and I am pleased to report that now the ADE SDER reports are correct and they align with our data. And so it took a lot of effort, but I appreciate the board giving us that direction and us being able to follow through and get that corrected. As you all know, we do have an override on the November 4th ballot. The governing board called for the election back in June, and in that election call there was a presentation, and that presentation is on our website. The voter pamphlet will be coming out within the next 2 weeks. The voter pamphlet details the override itself and where we will be targeting the $11 million of funds that are going to be committed towards that. Those are to restore elementary specials, to restore band and strings at our elementary schools, to reduce class size by a minimum of 3, teacher horizontal movement, staff salary increases of 2%, health insurance increases, restore our high school department chairs, restore supplementals for them, restore assistant principals at 7 of our campuses, 5 elementary and 2 high school, and to restore our Desert Canyon principal. 90% of the dollars, as we've said and shown on the chart on our website, are directed to the classroom and to the sites at our schools. And we want to be clear that that presentation is on our website, and those dollars will follow exactly as had been approved and will be in the voter pamphlet that's coming out in the next 2 weeks. The governing board has also been working hard on our district goals and our performance measures. Our next meeting with the governing board is September 30th at noon, where we will meet to finalize our goals and our measurements to be used to monitor our progress. I would invite the community to be present, and our goals will be posted on our website as soon as they are approved, and we will have them out there. And one last item I would like to share, and that is Legendary Teacher Day, which will be September 25th. All of us have had a special teacher that's made a significant difference in our lives, and those teachers we call legendary. Those teachers possess and consistently demonstrate a specialized set of skills, allowing them to transform their deep content knowledge into life-changing student learning. Those teachers also make classrooms safe and fun by creating a caring family culture. Those teachers expect us to exceed our own expectations, and they do that every single day. We often don't fully understand and recognize the profound influence teachers have on our future until later in life. I can tell you, later in my life, have recognized some of the influences of my teachers, and they truly were legendary teachers. It's important that we take time to fully recognize the special teachers in our lives, and I encourage all of us to contact our legendary teachers and express our gratitude on September 25th. Thank you.
Dr. Peterson, I would like to pull item O, the approval of 2015 capital plan and new construction application to the State of Arizona Facilities Board. Mrs. Kirby.
Thank you. I would like to pull item R, approve and award of request for proposal, bond and financial services.
Have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of O and R.
Moved.
Seconded.
First and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. So at this time, we'll look at item 8O, approval of the 2015 capital plan and new construction application to the State of Facilities Board. I just wanted to get more clarification and from Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and I've asked Terry Wooster to come up and talk a little bit regarding this plan also. This is a plan, and I gave you a copy of that before the meeting. This is a yearly report that's required by the School Facilities Board. Even though the legislators stopped funding Students First, they stopped funding building renewal, and it's in law that we still have to submit a capital plan. Basically, what the capital plan is to look ahead over the next 10 years. But really, the School Facilities Board in law says they're supposed to look over the next 5 years, and if a school district has growth, would qualify for a school, then they would get in the pipeline to be qualified and approved for a school. Unfortunately, the School Facilities Board has no money to build any schools. So even though they make us submit these plans every single year, they don't unfortunately do anything with them. And Terry can talk a little bit about it, how we do our roll-up method, and that's all we do is a straight roll-up method for our enrollment. So Terry?
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Peterson, and Ms. Wright. Pleasure to be here. Happy to be with the district. Thank you. The capital plan typically is a formula that is created, and it was created many years ago. And that formula is a roll-up based upon a time that was established approximately 2005, 2004. So these numbers stay consistent as they go forward in the accounting at the School Facility Board. They do not necessarily parallel a district's actual enrollment. They are used in the event that a district applies for new square footage or a new construction, and they will look at the roll-up as it occurs in comparison to the request for additional school construction or square footage and make a comparison, and then they factor the actual enrollment in contrast to the amount of students that are in the district at the time, and it is a qualification capital plan. That's the use of this particular device here.
Kirby.
Thank you, and nice to meet you.
Yes.
Welcome. So am I understanding you right that on the ADM projections, school district just follows a formula that's determined by the School Facilities Board, and it just spits out a number, and we have to live with that number?
Typically, yes. Yes, is that there is a minimum amount of square footage that a district can have related to their enrollment. And so districts are in high growth cycles. They will look at that high growth cycle and then make a comparison when a district requests a construction that is funded by the state.
But I'm just looking at this right here, this section of ADM projections.
Yes.
And so, for example, for full year, or fiscal year 15, the ADM projection's 27,520.
Yes.
We have any control over that figure?
We
Or
do.
are we at the mercy of some formula that the School Facilities Board has concocted?
We do not have control of that figure. Now, we can
Okay.
request a change, but that is not an advisable change. It's simply because this number stays consistent year to year to year. And so if we ask a change, as we make that change to within our roles, we then have to reconcile that to the square footage that we have. We may go back into a growth cycle, and so we want to keep this going forward as it may occur at this point in time.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 8O for the capital plan.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 That passes 5-0.
Thank you.
And welcome. The next item then to consider is item 8R, approve the award of request for proposal RFP number 15007, bond and financial services.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm going to ask our CFO, Dan O'Brien, to talk a little bit to this. Again, this is an item that we need to do because of our issues that every year we have to maintain our bond ratings, which I'm proud to say Scottsdale has the highest school bond rating in the state, and those types of services. And then there's some new requirements that the federal government has come down on that we have to comply with, and I'll let Dan explain those.
Thank you, Madam President, board members. This is a procurement that we've done. Obviously, if we've done with most procurements, they last for 5 years. The last one that we did is coming up upon expiration, so we did a new one. And again, as Dr. Peterson mentioned, the companies that we work with do several things. They do both our bond underwriting and our financial advisory. And so they help us sell the bonds. They get all of them ready when we're ready to do it. They also work with refinancing. We meet with them about every 6 months to go over refinancing of possibly of any of our bonds, what the market's doing, what the interest rates are doing. Would it be advisable to refinance to try to save the taxpayers and the district money? And then also they do a lot of financial advising. When we do our tax rates, we work with the county. When we work with our defeasance, which is the amount that property taxes might not be paid in a fiscal year, they work with us to help us set those rates, make sure they're accurate, and make sure that we get our tax rate close. With this one, it's a little bit different, as Dr. Peterson mentioned. Back in 2012, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act was passed by Congress. And what this is basically came out from the recession from 2008 that basically states that municipal bond advisories and financial advisories and underwriters have to have a separate role. For the longest time, we've had them combined, so we have our underwriters and our financial advisors. It's kind of just one of those things when something like the economic downturn happens, especially since it was so heavy on the banking side, we get in and start to put more regulation in there. And so on July 1st of 2014, that Reform Act, with help from the Securities and Exchange Commission, brought out the rules. I won't bore everybody with the 97 pages of requirements and requests that they do from it, but basically what it states is that it's advisable that you have a bond underwriting firm and you have a financial advisory firm, and that you don't combine those two. And so with that, on this renewal, we decided to go with two separate firms, so we keep those separate in accordance with that Reform Act. I can answer any specific questions that you have, but that's the overview for it.
Mrs. Kirby?
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. So I was not privy to the RFP that's referenced in this agenda item, but basically the question is there anything in that RFP that would look to any analysis, underwriting, writing of future bonds to be floated to, say, possibly rebuild elementary schools?
Yeah, obviously, with discussions that we've had with administration and with the board, that this will be for 5 years, which will include not only a bond if we possibly go out for it next year or in future years to rebuild the elementary schools, but they also work with us on our overrides, including our current override and our possible capital override in the future. So everything was written in there so that they can work with those if we have those in the future, when we have those in the future.
So tonight, if we approve this, and it is written as for an amount not to exceed $50,000, if we approve this item, it's the last time that this would come before the board, because after we've approved it for amount not to exceed $50,000, then it's an administrative decision on how dollars are spent against that 50,000, correct?
Correct. The only time that it would come back to the board is if that we find out for whatever possible reason that when we do a bond in the future years, if it starts to exceed the amount that we have not to exceed, if it exceeds it more by 10%, we bring it back to the board for ratification. The last time we did sell bonds was in January of 2012, and it was approximately $61,000. Now, the cost here is we have two different costs. Because we're breaking it up, we have a cost to sell the bonds, which we're not doing right now, so that wouldn't happen for a few years. And then we have that financial advisory piece. That is really what we'd be using this RFP for, at least in the near future, which would not be in excess of the $50,000.
And also, Board Member Kirby, every year we have to have these renewed, so we would bring it back next year for the governing board to renew for year 2 of the year 5. The governing board could give us direction and say, do something else.
But I guess what I want to get comfortable with is that we're not going to spend any dollars against the 50,000 for potential future bonds until the decision has been made.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. This is just for the bonds we have in place and for helping us with the tax rates and all those types of things. We think it'll, 50,000, we put that number in there, should be less than that.
Okay.
But we got to be careful. We don't know what's going to happen with the state when they come in and have to do this inflation funding and how those things are going to affect some of these rates. So we have to be careful.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve item 8R, approve the award of request for proposal RFP number 15007, Bond and Financial Services. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
It passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is information 9A, information discussion item regarding the open enrollment capacities and processes.
Thank you, Madam President. I've asked Dr. Sitton, our Assistant Superintendent for HR and also responsible for our Central Enrollment Office, to present a presentation regarding some updates on open enrollment, our capacities, and our processes, and what the laws are that we have to follow. And this was based on some requests that we've had from the governing board previously, and so we were able to bring it forward tonight.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Rose. This evening I will be presenting information regarding the open enrollment processes and capacities. So Arizona Revised Statute 15-816.01 establishes the requirement for school district governing boards to maintain open enrollment policies and to implement without charging tuition. We do have board policy J1050 JFB that addresses open enrollment. CEO, this is a picture of their website that they actually put information where a lot of our processes are actually given out to the public. So some of the items that they include is how to enroll, school boundaries, bus routes, bell schedules, immunization requirements, contact information, their hours, and the open enrollment process is outlined on the website. The timelines are also outlined within our board policy. So our open enrollment begins on December 1st. And when we have what's called our initial open enrollment ends. So anyone that puts in from that December 1st to that January 15th is considered in our initial open enrollment. We do notify the applicants on February 1st whether they are able to enroll and been accepted or whether they're on a wait list. And all those that are accepted do need to turn in all of the enrollment documents by March 31st. After that occurs, we do accept late applications, and once any of those are actually, when we have capacity in room, are accepted, they do have 2 weeks to go ahead and enroll, and that just continues throughout the summer. We have 2 categories outlined. We have a category 1, which are benefited employees, and if there's a sibling that's going to be in enrollment that coming up year, they're considered category 1, and they do have a priority. And then category 2 are students not enrolled during the current year. And when we're looking at the categories, we do take a look at, do we have capacity at the building still? And is there program capacity if they're going into a special program? There are some exemptions outlined for eligibility to open enrollment. One of those is if they've been expelled from another school, that we do not have to accept them. And we can honor and do honor disciplinary actions. So if they were serving a suspension at another school, they would not be allowed to enroll until their suspension had been honored. Another nice feature on the website for everyone the public to be able to see is what we call the grade level open-close status sheet. The sheet is updated every Wednesday out at open enrollment, at the enrollment, and we're looking at whether a school is open or closed, and for the elementary, you'll take a look at every grade level is also on there. Now, when we're talking about whether a school is open or closed, it's about facility capacity and staffing capacity. So one example of that is Navajo. They have facility capacity, but they don't have staffing capacity at second grade, so they're actually closed in second grade. So if a request comes in, what we do is we put them on a wait list, and if we have enough requests, then we would go ahead, accept them, and add the staffing capacity for another classroom. So if there's a wait list at a school, centralized enrollment does contact people on the wait list and encourages them to go ahead and enroll at another school. And they share all the time what schools that we have openings at that we would love to have them enrolled and become part of SUSD. So I mentioned on the last slide about facility capacity when accepting open enrollment students. And the next few slides are actually data that was shared with the board on March 4th. It was during the highlights for facility plans for future referendum discussion. So I just clipped a few of those pieces just to bring back the capacity. So a little bit of it is that we take a look at the square footage number of classrooms when we're taking a look at what is that program capacity. And then we also have some ideal capacities for elementary, for middle, and for high school. Each of these slides are from that presentation. So when we look at facility capacity and open enrollment capacity, you will notice that the open enrollment capacity is lower. That's because we do hold spots for neighborhood students who need to enroll and move into the area. And you'll also notice that ANLC and Cheyenne have the exact same number for their facility and open enrollment because they're schools of choice. The capacity was based on programs, enrollment trends, and demographics in neighborhoods, and those were determined back in 2009. Here's the facility capacity for middle school. And here's the high school capacities that were shared back in March. So I'm going to take a look at just a little more detailed at a few schools. So to help us track each grade level by school, we utilize what we called an open enrollment calculator. Here's a sample for Hopi. It contains the grade level, the FTE, or how many sections or teachers they have, the maximum number of students based on the target class size for that grade level, the student counts for students enrolled and active students. And you'll notice there's a difference there because we take out if they're in a self-contained gifted program or special ed program because their staffing is done separately. So that's why there's a difference in those numbers. And then we take a look at, are they open? We always leave a margin in there of how many students we want to have a cushion for move-ins that we think occur or tend to occur, and then how many available seats they actually have for each grade level and as a whole school. So if we pull together facility capacity, open enrollment capacity, and the staffing at Hopi, here's that balancing that needs to occur. We do have additional facility capacity and available seats based on staffing, which is why if you check the website, it has a check availability with CEO. We need to balance the size of the school, though, so we also work on that. And we know that once we begin a section of kindergarten, it continues to roll up. So that kindergarten might be only 27 students at first year, but by the time you multiply that for 6 years of that sixth section of kindergarten. So one of the ways that we are helping Hopi this year and managing the size of the overall school is that we did only open 5 kindergartens this year. We reduced it by 1 to help with the overall size. Cheyenne, here's an example of a choice school. So the facility capacity is the same as the OE capacity. We do accept students based on the max for each grade level, and that we do keep 4 FTEs. So it's one of those things, we don't want to have 6 sections one year, 5 sections one year, so we keep 4 sections all the way through. You will notice a little bit, though, the FTE changes at middle school, because it might be that you have 7th grade students taking 8th grade classes, so in this case, they needed 3.6 instead of 4.0 FTE. Cheyenne is a continuous acceptance process, so we do continue to accept students. Some students will be accepted after the 10th day because that's when we withdraw students if they don't end up showing up. So we do accept students there. And they have that 2 weeks to register. Here's an example of a middle school, Ingleside. Middle schools are just a little different in their staffing when you look at that FTE. Students don't necessarily take courses based on their grade level. So you might have a 6th grade student taking something different, or an 8th grade student might be at the high school taking a course. So we work really closely with the principals to take a look at what they actually need within their classes, and sometimes they may need a 0.2 based on size. And when we're accepting students, we work with the building principal, because it may be that their social studies is completely full, even though, because they might have students taking math in other places. So we have to make sure that they have room in each of the content areas so that we could give students a full schedule. So if you're balancing Ingleside, their facility was $975, open enrollment is $898, and they're currently, when I pulled this last week, at $776. I also have a high school example. So Arcadia. High schools are similar to that middle school in that students don't take courses just based on the grade they're in. So what we really look at is the school as a whole, and that we work with that principal on that staffing to say, would you have room to take another student? And we have to look at all of their classes. Dr. Holmes will actually pull out their schedule to see, what does freshman English look like? What are those classes looking like, to see whether or not they have room? We also do have, though, some CTE staffing that occurs at the high schools that helps with class size, because it's not part of this initial staffing. It's above and beyond. Here's a snapshot of Arcadia. They were at 765, and their capacity for facility was 1817, and they are currently closed to any OE students. Okay, I have put in here this chart that shows the number of open enrollment students we have at each elementary school. The first column is 2014 out, and it's the number of students that are open enrolled from outside of district boundaries. The next column, 2014 in, that means they are open enrolled from inside the district boundaries. They could attend another SUSD school that's their home school, but they choose to go to a different school with us. And the final column is just the total of number open enrollment students they have at each of the schools. Our choice schools are all open enrolled. That's why their numbers are so high. And we do make sure in centralized enrollment that each technician specializes in one learning community, so they get to know that learning community well, and then the learning community, those schools, have a direct contact back to centralized enrollment. Here's our middle schools for their open enrollment numbers from outside the district, inside open enrollment, and their totals. And then here is our high school open enrollment numbers. We have a fairly good number at all of our high schools that have open enrollment students. Our next step is Michelle Marshall is going to be bringing to you guys soon revisions and recommendations from the open enrollment policy. We are having conversations with building principals around some things that they might like to also see recommended in that policy, and she'll be coming back to a board meeting soon to bring those recommendations to you. Any questions?
Mrs. Kirby.
Thank you for agendizing, if that's a word, this item. And I have a slew of questions. So if we could go back, my first question is on the priorities, the enrollment priorities.
Uh-huh.
And you have Category 1 and Category 2. Is there a preference given to in-boundary open enrollment versus out-of-boundary open enrolled students who are on a wait list, for example? Is there a preference?
There's no preference in board policy if you're in, let me say it one more time, Ms. Kirby.
In boundary, so in SUSD boundary versus out of boundary.
No, there's no preference given for that.
Okay. The statute you read was very vague. I mean, not vague, it was very broad. It felt like we could kind of do, as long as we offered open enrollment, that we had some flexibility within statute. Is that true? Michelle?
Yes, Board Member Kirby, the statute requires that all public school districts have open enrollment policies. So it is fairly flexible. We do need to make sure that we're not going to run afoul of any other laws that sort of overlap with how we treat students who are applying for the district. But yes, it is pretty flexible.
Okay. So, so now let's go to the sheet that shows the closed and check availability and open. So Hopi, I'm not picking on Hopi, it's just an extreme example because it's very full and it's one we can talk about. So Hopi is sitting, if I saw a sheet in here somewhere, at 103%. So we have more students at Hopi than the program capacity numbers that we've calculated, that the district has calculated correct?
Remember, that was last year's sheet. This year, we actually eliminated one kindergarten section at Hopi, so we purposely have provided additional capacity at Hopi. So the sheet you saw was for last March, that presentation on capacities. That was the one that Rick Freeman gave last March. Our current numbers, we actually reduced the kindergarten sections at Hopi from 6 sections to 5 to provide some additional relief and have one less classroom at Hopi.
I'm looking at the sheet. Go to it, Dr. Sitton. It's titled SUSD 2014 Facility Capacity Recommendations. That one. So if I'm understanding the column headings correctly, and I may not be, I looked at, for Hopi, full year 14, 907, divided by 875, which says 2014 facility capacity, and it says right there 103.6.
Yes, that was March of last year. We're now September. We have a whole new year and whole new grade of classes.
Data we're talking about tonight's old data.
Well, the capacity number that you saw in the right column is, but the rest of the numbers that Pam shared with you, Pam, if you want to go to those sheets where you showed each of the schools.
So I have 846 is Hopi's current enrollment this year so far. So that's on the slide I have up right now. Is 846.
Which was another question, is why was there a difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I took from the presentation because it related to the capacities that were set, because those haven't changed. But when you take a look at the percents, those obviously have changed because the capacity number was set at 875, but their current enrollment is 846. So I just snipped those out of the presentation done in last March because it had the facility capacity numbers. But then I've updated on those different schools what the current enrollment actually is.
And we did that very purposefully because we had heard from Hopi that they felt compacted, and so we eliminated a kindergarten section, and we're very careful as we controlled acceptance this year.
Okay, my point I think is still valid, it's just not as extreme. But my point is, so there, if I were to recalculate the percent capacity, or maybe in other words, utilization, it would be at 96.6% for Hopi. And if we said somewhere in here what the ideal target utilization was for an elementary school, it's much lower than that. Probably know it off the top of your head. There it is, 85 to 90%.
Yeah.
So why then on that sheet, the grades that are closed or open or check availability, why wouldn't Hopi be closed? Why is it across the board every grade level check availability? If we're so high, even to our own ideal numbers.
Yeah, well, it could be that they have, and I think they might have one grade level that has quite a number of openings in it. So second grade had 31 seats. So if we happen to have someone that would come in that had a second grader, or it could be someone that maybe they moved back to the area, or they are bringing a sibling back that would be considered a Category 1, we would probably consider enrolling them at a grade level that had 31 openings.
But it's not second grade check availability, it's across the entire school check availability.
Right, because we are being so careful with the overall size of Hopi, because we know that their utilization is so high, that we make sure we check availability on anyone that wants to go into Hopi.
But then what's the difference between check availability and closed? Why wouldn't you have Hohokam kindergarten as check availability?
Because we do the closed when the available seats, like I have up on the calculator, are small. When they're really down low, we just close it automatically then. But if they're at a higher rate, we tend to leave them open. But with Hopi really paying attention to that, even though they have a number that we typically would say is open, we're putting it as check availability, because there might be some circumstances where we would go ahead and enroll someone.
Right, and I get that, because what I think I'm hearing you say is, you're building a wait list, and if your numbers are really small, your wait list is probably never going to get to a full class size to warrant another teacher, so you just mark it as closed. But if you're building a wait list and you're approaching a class size that would warrant another teacher, then you want to say check availability. But again, on Hopi, I come back to Hopi, it's at 96% utilization already. And the reason, the reason I'm trying to understand this is because we have Hopi, which is at 96% utilization, and literally right down the street, we have ANLC, which is in the 60s. And so, yeah, we could have them check availability and then add another section to Hopi, but that then just defeated what we did with kindergarten of removing some kindergarten sections out.
Well, and we wouldn't necessarily, the reason we have check availability is because there are so many available seats at Hopi right now. So, yeah, if they were closed, we would just mark it closed. But if you look at kindergarten has 24 available spots, first grade 15 available spots. So closed for the most part is when they have very few seats that are left, and we know that we're starting the wait list. So check availability we're using at Hopi when typically if it was another school that the facility capacity wasn't so high, we'd mark it open. But because we're trying to balance that and be very careful about it, we marked it as check availability.
Okay, so.
Because they have the staffing numbers to have those available seats, even though their facility is at 96%.
It's all feeling circular to me. I feel like I'm in an Excel spreadsheet and I've got a circular reference going on because I can't get past the 96%, and that's what I'm struggling with. And I know staffing is extraordinarily complicated, and I know Sean pulls his hair out, and I don't envy you at all. But at what point do we? I feel like we need to reverse engineer our facility utilization, and could we say, and you said it earlier, our ideal capacity for an elementary school is what the
85 to 90.
85 to 90%. And that is our absolute maximum, because I know what it feels like to be in a school that's busting at the seams with kids. And it is not an ideal learning situation. So I'm having a hard time understanding why we just don't say this is the max and then we back up from there. I feel like we're always allowing opportunity for creep. For what, yet one more kid, yet 30 more kids. And it's not making sense to me because we have some schools that are overflowing, and then literally right down the street we have other schools that are, yellow on your yellow, blue. Am I the only one that just feels that this is
well, I
a bit
think
of a
we
quandary?
have begun that because the next year there won't be 6 sections of first grade, so that 96 will go down even further again next year. So I think that was part of, so every time that kinder we don't allow an extra section there, it will impact the whole school. Every single year it will start to decrease. So you saw it go from the 103 to the 96. Next year it will go down even further because there won't be 6 sections of first grade that move up.
But kindergarten at Hopi is still check availability, which what I've heard you say is we're getting close enough. It's close enough to add another section, so we're.
Oh, it's not close enough to add in our section. There's 24 available seats in the 5 sections that they have.
But I thought we said we were intentionally pulling back a section and hoping.
We did. They used to have
provide some
6.
really-
Yeah.
Okay,
They used to
so-
have 6. We moved it to 5, and on those 5, there's an
2.
average of 5 seats in each one of those classes. There's a total of 24 available kindergarten seats at Hopi right now,
Okay, so then why wouldn't it be open?
because we are very, very cautious regarding the input we've received from that community. And it is a difficult balance. We do try, as we get here, we try to recommend people that want to go to Hopi to ANLC, and they talk about ANLC. And we've been successful in some cases. Other ones say, no, Hopi's right here close to the border, so we want, and we live a little further over on the other side of the district boundaries, so we would stay on that waiting list until there's availability. So it's a balance. We can drop down to have every school at 85%, if that's what the governing board gives us direction to do. Then you're going to exclude open enrollment students that all of a sudden we're going to say, well, we're being held accountable for trying to get enrollment up, and yet we're going to purposely exclude open enrolled students, and they're going to have a lower enrollment overall of the district. So it's a double-edged sword, and that's why we've tried to work with the schools that have expressed concerns to us to balance them as close as we can without being exclusionary, because we're trying to get our numbers, and we do try to recommend. Same thing with Arcadia. Arcadia, as you can imagine, is extremely popular. High school students come on that bus straight down Indian School Road and get off to go to Arcadia High School. We try to recommend students to go to Saguaro or Coronado from Arcadia. Some say, nope, we'll stay on the list, we'll stay at our home school, and if there's a spot opened up, let us know, and we will take it, because we want to go to Arcadia. It's got a great name.
Yeah,
It's a tough balance to make all that work.
I think the high schools and the middle schools, there's fewer of them. They're further apart geographically, and so I can see the challenge of a family. I don't want to make that trip. I just stay on the wait list to Arcadia because it's too far. But when you get to the elementary schools, there's so many that are so close, and we haven't talked about the Granite Reef corridor, but they're literally a mile apart, and I feel like there's got to be a better way, and I don't have the answer. I'm trying to learn how it works tonight so I can think about, as we go into next year, there just seems that like there has to be a better way to manage this.
We're trying to figure out a better way to have people be willing to go a little further into the district, because Tavon is just like Hopi. Tavon being strategically located where it is, same thing. Margaret will tell you, bursting at the seams, because of its strategic location right on our district boundary. We try to get students recommended to go further in, and there's just a hesitancy to go further in with an elementary school student. So it's a little tougher.
Is it transportation, you think? Is it the parent just not wanting to make that extra drive?
Well, I think part of it is transportation. I think part of it is they still feel that they're close enough community-wise versus going over several more school boundaries. And so it's a tough choice. It's a tough balance. And we try to recommend them. And same thing, from Hopi, where we're full, the two recommendations we make are ANLC and Kiva. And we say, look at those campuses, and we try to get folks to go there. It's just, it seems like because you go a little further, they're hesitant, and Pam can talk a little more about that, but that's what they tell us when they're in the enrollment trailer with us.
But how much of it, so in that example, Kiva I kind of get, because you kind of, if we had a tunnel through Camelback Mountain, that'd be really cool. But you have to go around the mountain, or a cable car, or like a zip line too, it'd be kind of neat. But ANLC, it's not that much further, but it is a different program. And so is some of this programmatic driven, that people are looking for different choices?
Well, we brag about the program at ANLC. I think it's more just that natural distance. It's just with elementary children, it's that natural distance. I think with high school, definitely parents are willing to get them to go where they go, and you saw the numbers in the high schools. Middle schools, a little bit, not near as much, but elementaries, it just seems to be that natural barrier as you start to go a little further away. And I think that's just
So strategically, our perimeter schools, strategically.
In this area, Tavon and Hopi, you bet. Sequoia is cyclical. It's up on the Paradise Valley northern area there, and it's a little bit cyclical. Some years we get a lot, other years it's down a little bit. So it's a little bit interesting. Copper Ridge has good pull from their area. So again, it's a little bit geographic where it's at. Even at Copper Ridge, sometimes we've had to close a couple sections, and we've recommended families to go down the street to Desert Canyon, and they wouldn't do it. So again, it's that distance a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jackson, I think you were next.
Dr. Sitton, thank you for the presentation. It was terrific. I just wanted to follow up on a question Board Member Kirby asked, because I wanted to get some clarification. If there's a waiting list, and I think you gave me the answer, but I just want to make sure I understood it. In district, within our district boundary, families and out of district boundary families are treated identically. Is that correct?
They are. If they put in during that initial period, we actually lottery the waiting list, because you can put it anywhere between that December and January, those dates.
Okay.
And then we lottery if we have more, the wait list, and it just goes down the wait list.
Right, and I certainly don't want to, well, it's hard to prioritize, but it would seem to me to be that in-district families, is there a reason why we wouldn't give them a preference if they live within our district boundaries? And I don't
We just
there-
don't have the board policy written that way.
Okay.
That could be something to take a look at, is whether or not a change in the board policy would want to do that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, can you piggyback? Yeah.
The lottery. So we don't, so you see some districts will actually say it opens up at this time and they create a long line out their door. We accept all of them during that time period. And then if we have more than we can do spaces, we actually will lottery the names. They will just be drawn 1 through whatever the names are, and we start and give the spots just going down. So you don't have to turn it on December 1st. If you turn it in on December 5th, you have an equal chance of going ahead and getting in versus January 1st. So as long as you have it in within that initial period, it's not by the date that you put it in.
So as.
Yes. Right, it's not
Okay,
first come, first served.
So something, and I'm not saying that I have a preference here, it's just something to think about. From the parent's perspective who's trying to get into one of our schools, what I heard you say is centralized enrollment doesn't have we don't have the procedures or policies in place for centralized enrollment to tell a prospective family, you're number 15 on the wait list. What we say is you're on the list and we're going to have a lottery, and you may, because, is that correct?
Right, because we don't know where they are until it actually closes.
Okay, so a suggestion, just the psychology of that parent who is really wanting to get their little Susie into Hopi, you know, if they know that they're close and they're number 10 or they're number 15, they're more likely to stay committed to that choice. And if it's really kind of a lottery and we can't tell you, they're going to possibly shop elsewhere.
Well, and that lottery is for that first phase, that December to January 15th. After that, it's based on the date of when they have submitted their application. And so then we can tell them, you're number 6 on the list.
What's the
or number 8.
rationale for the lottery then?
Because otherwise, we'd have people camping out, first come, first serve. And I guess we could do that if the governing board wants us to do that. But the policy was to just accept those students, and that was the practice we've done from the beginning. But we could look at changing that.
Mm-hmm. Wait lists create a perception, and it's like concert tickets. I mean, it's One Direction tonight. We're all here. We're missing One Direction. I mean, it's kind of like, I'm going to get that ticket. I'm going to get that floor seat, right? So just a thought. It's something to consider, as you guys.
Although we would much rather be here than One Direction, so.
Mrs. Perleberg?
Thank you, and George definitely took my first question, absolutely, so I'll just kind of build on it. But first, could we request to have the data regarding the SUSD open enrollment numbers for the school? I don't think we had that in the board book, so I'd love to receive that and take a look, do a little deeper dive in there. But so going back to this idea of our SUSD open enroll students, what is the standard practice in other districts? Is it similar in that there's no special preference for in-district open enrollment students versus out-of-district? Is that an industry standard, or do we?
Yeah, I have
look at
not
things
looked
differently?
at other policies. I don't know if Michelle has looked at what other.
I couldn't say what the standard is, but I can certainly look at that and ask for neighboring districts if you'd like.
I would personally like that, so thank you very much.
I had a question. Do some parents sign their students up for more than one school in their open enrollment? Say that might be their first, second, third, fourth choice, and they may end up in the lottery and be chosen by more than one school, or they can take a spot at more than one school?
So, Madam President, they do get a chance to put 3 choices down. So if they don't get their first choice, we do offer them their second choice and enroll them. They can only enroll at one school, though. So if they were to come in and enroll at their second choice and we had a spot come available at their first choice, they would have to make a decision whether they wanted to go ahead and unenroll. And most of it occurs during the summertime, so they haven't started yet. But they could make that decision then to unenroll at the second and transfer in and go ahead and accept their first choice. But they can only be enrolled at one school.
I do want to say that I like the idea. I know that we've had the problem at Hopi with overcrowding or parents being upset with too many students there. That's what got me started in the very beginning 16 years ago. I like the idea of not displacing anyone that's already there. And I know that might cause some hardship for the next few years, but I like the idea of reducing it at the kindergarten with the expectation that it will then decrease exponentially without pushing people out. So, for thinking that.
That point, I agree. But you're also going to have natural attrition at upper grade levels as well. You know, families move. Are we allowing that natural attrition to take place and not backfill those seats, or are we backfilling those seats?
Once school starts, it becomes a transfer process, and if a student wants to transfer from one school to another, the principals have to discuss it and agree. So we even take it out of enrollment at that point. We don't say, yep, we can pluck you out. It's the transfer, and the principals have to have that. Typically what we see is more a family may move in during that school, during that middle of the year, and want to try to go to one of those schools, and we'll talk with the schools. For instance, today, we had a family come in that's relocating here from Brazil in December, and they have 2 children. They have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old, and we talked about the schools and the neighborhoods that they would be looking at, and they're going to go out and look at those, visit those schools, and then talk with the principals and say, my children are coming here in December. They're going to start on January 7th, and can we make this possible? So we try to work with those in those cases as they develop.
And Board Member Kirby, if I could add, I think it becomes that balancing act that you have to be careful that you don't lose so many students that the next year they lose a section, because the school principals don't want to lose a teacher. So they don't want to have that 5 sections, and then you lose students, and now all of a sudden during the staffing process it goes to 3 sections. So sometimes we actually have the principal say, do we have some, so that I can take in a few more students to make sure that I keep the staffing at the site.
And then one other question that I had, and it comes back to the blue, yellow, green sheet. Elementary schools down the side and their utilization. On Hopi, and we keep on hoping it's just because it's a very successful school, and we're not really picking on it. It's one we can hold up proudly. But why would our open enrollment, when we're trying to manage down the total enrollment of that school, provide some relief, why would the open enrollment capacity number be so high versus the facility capacity? So the facility capacity is 875. That's what we say. That's a program number, right? That's what we, the district, say is what that school can hold. But yet our open enrollment capacity is at 790. I have to believe that within the Hopi boundary have more than 85 students that are eligible to go to Hopi. Why wouldn't that number be much lower?
I can address some of that. With the facility capacity, as we know, that's based on teaching spaces, classrooms, things, and our staffing ratios. The open enrollment capacity then looks at the students that are living in that boundary and what a buffer we leave, because what that really is we would accept students up to that level, but we have the gap from 790 to 875, which is 85 students, so that we have a gap that during the year, if a family were to move in with children, there has to be space in that school for them. So that's really what that is for. We first and foremost take we don't even look at open enrollment until we really get the families that are in residence and have them roll up.
Mr. Jackson had another question.
I'll be quick. I just want to, I'm really pleased to hear that we have a plan in place to give the Hopi community some relief, because we've been hearing from them, and I'm delighted that it's the first I've heard, frankly, about reducing the number of kindergarten classes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, thank you. I know those folks are struggling there. It's a wonderful school, and anyway, I'm delighted. I'm sure they're thrilled too. I know it's a process, and just like Board Member Sneed said, we're not displacing current students, which I think I completely agree with those comments from President Sneed, but at least there is a plan to provide some relief to Hopi over time, and anyway, I'm thrilled, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next information discussion item is item 9B, the sale of portions of land and real property located at Apache Elementary and the purchase of land and real property from the city of Scottsdale.
Thank you, Madam President. I've asked our in-house counsel, Michelle Marshall, to give you a quick update of where we are in the process. Again, this is something that's been going on for almost a year now, but our clear direction was we needed to, as we have on the bond or the question on this year's ballot, to possibly sell this building. We need to house folks appropriately. Some staff is being moved to the warehouse, some are moved to Mojave Annex to accommodate it, but we have a large other group of folks that need to be housed, and the direction was to do it with no cost to the district because our funds are crucial. And so the city had a need, and we think this is a good match, and so Michelle will explain it to us.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. You stole my whole introduction. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Mrs. Wright. I'm just here to give you a little update on where we are in the process of trying to work that out with the city of Scottsdale. As Dr. Peterson mentioned, the board did approve the, putting on the ballot in November the sale of this property this November, and we are looking to put some of the functions from this Ed Center elsewhere. And that place that we're looking at right now is the City of Scottsdale's former HR building at 7575 East Main in Scottsdale. We've had discussions, many discussions with the city about how to accomplish that. We have determined that we will need to have the sale of part of the Apache Park property. That sale would be not any of the buildings, but just part of the park. The city needs that property for a retention basin for flood control, and the city has bond funds available to use to make that purchase. Once that happens, the proposal will be that the district, after that, buys the HR building for the purpose of housing some of the functions, including the superintendent's office and those offices that aren't being relocated to existing buildings, such as the MDA and the warehouse for IT and that kind of thing. We're continuing to go through negotiations with the city. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning with the city. Dr. Peterson, our CFO, Danny, and I are planning to meet with them to continue to hammer out the details. Just a reminder to our public, unfortunately, proceeds from the sale cannot go into our M&O budget, but they can be used for capital. Finally, just to let you know, we expect to be able to bring you actual proposed agreements for you to see the actual terms for approval in the coming months. With that, I'll take any questions, and they'll probably be for Dr. Peterson or Danny rather than me, but I'll try.
Mrs. Perleberg.
Either one of you can question. So when we use the terms sell and buy and purchase a building for our offices, I think I'd love to see that picture painted a little differently for our stakeholders and all of those listening. Are we not allowed to say the word trade? Or, I mean, obviously, I'll let you answer that. And then I'd also love you to, if possible, tonight discuss the challenges that I think we've heard in the past of moving these, a lot of these offices onto a particular campus. Love to hear that. Thank you.
Great question, and I thought you would ask that, so we are prepared. Madam President, Board Member Perleberg, a couple of things. Technically, yes, when you get down to it, it is an exchange. The Apache property that the city operates, it's our land, but they operate it through an IGA as a city park. They need to dig it down about 5 feet deeper for a detention basin, so that is technically yes. The issue is with the city. The city needs to use bond dollars to buy that because they have bond dollars for flood control projects. So they can't just say, let's do an exchange and we'll take the value of that money and take it out of the bond. They can't. So they have to actually see a transaction be recorded. So that's why we have to do that double transaction. And our hesitancy is we want to make sure those dollars can truly go into paying for that building and capital purposes, because we have committed to not spending school district dollars. It's got to be that overall net out. So that's why we're just being cautious to make sure we dot every I and cross every T, because We are allowed to do this as a municipality to a school district. You're allowed to do that by the vote of both the governing board and the city council. So remember, even if we want to go forward on it, the governing board has to approve it and the city council also has to approve it before we can even go forward. So even if city staff, which they agree with us, we agree with them, we still have to have our two governing entities give the final approvals and do that. So that's why it'll come forth in that area. In looking at other schools to locate things, we've taken a hard look. And that's why we chose some areas at the warehouse that we could reconfigure and put IT in there. It's going to be a great setup. Tom Clark will probably tell you it should have been done years ago because of the issues we have here in this building with IT and things. We're putting nutritional services at the front set of buildings at Yavapai Elementary School because it's a good fit. It's separate from the campus. We don't go into the campus, and it works good for them. We're having some of the executive directors for elementary, secondary, going to be housed at the MDA, but it's a small portion for an available space that we have there, so that we don't, one, overload the MDA, and also that was just the space we have. The rest of the folks we need to house somewhere. So we've talked at schools. It would, first of all, cost us a significant amount of money to go in and renovate a school to try to put offices into it. And just to say, well, take a classroom and put all your payroll people in a classroom, that's really not realistic. Put your benefits people in a classroom. They have to have some privacy when you talk to employees that come in for issues and those types of things, and their working environment. You want to put the superintendent in a classroom, I'm okay with that. I'm usually in my car most of the time as it is, but there needs to be some areas that we have. The HR building has been renovated recently by the city of Scottsdale, so there's minimal amount of work that has to be done there, and so that's a good fit for us, and the dollars line up, so that's why. Also, we had some principals, to be honest with you, say it really doesn't work well with all the traffic coming and going at the Ed Center to have you on our campus. You couldn't build enough parking lots and spaces because parents also then want those parking lots to use for pickup kids and those types of things. So logistically, our principal said, please don't do it. And we wanted to honor our principals in doing that.
Mrs. Kirby.
Thank you. If I can't ask this question, just call me out on it. I think I can. I think it's a factual-based question. The language in the voter pamphlet, is that asking for, if the voter approves, are we required to sell or are we allowed to sell?
We're allowed to
okay,
sell.
So, okay, then that you may not be out on the street if we can't get a deal hammered out. Okay, and then I know that you've answered this before, but refresh my memory, please, approximately. The HR office in the city, square footage comparable to this facility right here.
Great question, Madam President, Board Member Kirby. A couple things. One, the square footage of this current building is just over 20,000 square feet. You got to remember we have a basement in here, and we have IT that's moving over. Nutritional services is going to move to Yavapai. The building at the HR building at 7575 East Main is around 14,000 square feet. So we're going down in square foot. I've been working on drawings where we can fit everybody in there. It'll be a little bit of a tight fit, but we can fit everybody in there and have one meeting room. Also, we are looking to relocate the boardroom to the lecture hall room at Coronado High School. So that'll be a good use at Coronado High School with meetings that take place several times a month. So it's not a burden, they're usually in the evening. So a little bit. Also, if we were to sell that Apache property, which the city really needs, we are not bound to buy the HR building. So let's say something fell through and we kept this building, or let's say we decided we want to go look at another building. We could do that. I just don't think we're going to find another building at that price that would fit our needs, that would need work in it. And this one, they've renovated it, and it's a pretty good fit.
I just wanted to make it clear that we're talking about 3 pieces of property here, correct? And so that in order to do the sale and purchase, exchange, if you will, with the city, that frees us up to sell this property. And that's the main reason why we want to do this.
Madam President, I think there's 2 main reasons. One, yes, to free us up. I also would like to see Scottsdale schools back in the city of Scottsdale, and I think that's important too.
I appreciate that too. Are there any other questions? You okay? The next item on the agenda then would be future items, if board members desire to propose topics for future consideration. Kirby.
Just to follow up to the open enrollment discussion we had, there were policy recommendations forthcoming. What's the approximate?
Board Member Kirby, as Dr. Sitton mentioned, we want to get some input from our principals. The high school principals will have a breakout this Thursday with Dr. Von Echten to give feedback on how they're experiencing the OE policy and what they would like to see in it. I know Dr. McNeil was at our meeting this morning, and he talked about having a meeting with his elementary folks. He has, I don't believe that's scheduled, but it will be soon. And as soon as we get that feedback, Dr. Sitton and I have already been working on what we think needs to change, including updating, moving up some deadlines to help our high school folks especially. So once we have their feedback, we can bring it back to you probably the October or November board meeting. And I took notes while you guys spoke today about what you might like to see, so we'll look at that too.
And all I would ask is that as we're having those discussions, which I think is great, we think about the future, and we think about policies, recommendations that will set us up for
we'll be sure to ask the principals about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. The dates of upcoming meetings, the first one is Tuesday, September 30th, 2014 at 12 p.m. There will be a special board meeting that we talked about earlier regarding goals. Then Thursday, October 2nd at 2014 at 12 p.m. there will be a special board meeting, a study session. Tuesday, October 7th, 2014 at 5 p.m. we will have a regular board meeting here in this building. At this time, are there any governing board reports? I just want to thank Mr. Brown for being our delegate to the Legislative Assembly for ASBA, and just wanted to say that it was great to see some SUSD people at the law conference. Always learn something new, always. Amazing. Mr. Brown.
You know, I just wanted to thank the new kid on the block, Ms. Harrington, and old Chris Duman for the great work over at Parent U. It was truly some really good work, and thank you very much.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
So moved.
Thank you, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very much, everyone.
Rose, you did good.